Little cousin.
How?
How? It's never as important as why, right? You chose me.
Impossible. I would never choose you.
Why did you take the herb?
To see my family.
No, that's bullshit. You didn't believe the ancestral plane was real, did you? So why did you take it then? You don't have to lie to me.
So I can be strong.
Strong to do what? See? I took it to avenge my ancestors too.
I'm nothing like you. You took it for yourself, then destroyed the rest. Unworthy king, afraid of being replaced. Just a coward.
No, I had the courage to do what was necessary to change Wakanda. How many people like your scientists did Wakanda protect before I took the throne? Cowards. That was the Panthers that came before me, and before T'Challa.
Don't mention my brother. You're the reason why he's dead. He burnt the herb, left us with no protector. Then Namor struck and killed my mother. Their blood is on your hands.
No, that ain't on me. And don't you dare take that away from your mother. She sacrificed her life to protect a young girl from the lost tribe. Your father, he was a hypocrite. He would have killed that girl. Should have killed his own brother. T'Challa was too noble. He let the man who murdered your father live. And here you stand. Are you gonna be noble like your brother? Or take care of business? Like me.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine. Joining me today is a fellow podcaster and a new guest, and that is Matthew Maulding. Matthew, how you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm glad to have you on. I've been talking with you and your co-host over on your podcast about, doing some mutual exchange type stuff in the podcasting realm. So why don't you tell people a little bit about what you guys do?
For sure. So our podcast is called Good Playing With You, and we mostly talk about video games. I would say 99% of what we have to talk about is video game related. Me and a couple buddies in late 2023 decided to put this together, and we started it. Our first episode was in January of 2024. And so we just hit a year and we're having a lot of fun with it. You can find us if you're a big video game fan, you can find us anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And then we have a YouTube channel, Good Playing With You. We're on most of the socials, and we have a lot of fun with it. We also have a blog too, goodplayingwithyou.com, where we just put up a story today talking about 7 video games that we want to see remade. And so we have a lot of fun. Me and one of my friends, Dan Whitehill, who's kind of the main driver of the podcast, have known each other for 25 years now at this point. And then Matt Lord has known him for a while, and I just met him last year, and we've been having a lot of fun with it. So if you like video games, we have a lot of saucy takes. We try to stay really positive. There's a lot of, video games get a lot of negative action lately. A lot of people angry at a lot of stuff. We try to be as positive as we can, try to talk about the good things about video games, not so much of the bad stuff.
That was one of the first things I looked into when I saw Daniel's post on Reddit asking for collaboration opportunities. First thing I wanted to check was, wait, are these guys a podcast that is actually kind of positive, or are these one of the ones that just wants to shit all over everything and complain the whole time? So I was really glad to see it was the
complain. Former. We definitely complain. We have but all the stuff we try to do is not the people getting really angry at video games. Now we get angry at video games, but it's not so much the cultural fights that go on. It's more about just we want video games to be fun, and here's how we think this game could be more fun. We try.
That awesome. That's a great approach, I think.
Thanks.
Now, but so this is a nice little segue. So, in terms of, obviously we're a superhero movie podcast, but there have also been a lot of superhero video games. So, what would you say is your favorite superhero video game?
Well, of all time, my favorite superhero, that's a really tough one. I mean, right now, I am really, really enjoying Marvel Rivals. So that is a game that's kind of an Overwatch clone for listeners who play video games. It's a hero shooter, what's called a hero shooter. And you can play as Rocket Raccoon, you can play as Black Panther, you can play as a lot of the most famous superheroes. And it's really taken the video game world by storm these last few months. It's a lot of fun. So that has been my main one that I've been playing lately. I really can't put it down. So much so that I used to be a huge Overwatch fan, and I don't even play Overwatch anymore. It's completely taken over that genre of games. So I would say right now that's probably my number one. I really have been having a lot of fun with it.
Okay, awesome. So that transitions to what I want to talk about is what got you into superheroes in the first place?
So it's a long history because I am I'm middle-aged. I'm a middle-aged white guy. And so I started playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was in grade school, and then into high school played with a DM, and he was a huge comic book fan. And the very first comic book I read, I think, was the introduction to Onslaught in the X-Men comic books. And I would read his comic books while we played Dungeons and Dragons, much to his chagrin, I think, a lot of the time. And that really set me on the path. And then I got introduced to the X-Men cartoon on Fox when I was in high school. And I had never seen any cartoon like that before, because I don't think until that point, cartoons were ever really serialized. And that one, something that happened in one episode was talked about in the next episode. It wasn't just like a brand new problem that happened every week. And when it came to the Phoenix Saga, not the Dark Phoenix Saga, but when they did the 5 episodes of the Phoenix Saga, I actually skipped school to make sure I got home in time to be able to watch that cartoon. It really meant a lot to me, and I really loved the X-Men 97, the reboot that they did. I guess it's not a reboot, the addition that they did to it. I really loved that too. And so that was my big formative introduction to superheroes and comic books. And then my last job, I actually worked for 15 years. I worked for Warner Brothers, and I did promotions and marketing for a lot of the DC properties. So I got to be there through the shooting that happened at I think it was Aurora.
Oh, the Joker, the guy who called himself the Joker. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was that Dark Knight Rises or Dark Knight? I can't even remember.
I believe it was Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, I think it was too, because he was dressed as Joker from Dark Knight. Yeah, so I was there during that time, and I got to work on a lot of the DC animated properties like Gotham by Gaslight and the Aquaman movies. And unfortunately, DC is not my big. I'm way more into Marvel than I am into DC. The DCU has had some issues over the years, finding their footing. And something I also really always loved about Marvel is that they were all based in quote unquote the real world. So they were in New York, LA, San Francisco, all those places. And I always liked those better than Gotham and Metropolis. So that always really hit me much truer when I would be enjoying my comic books or my superheroes.
Yeah. For me, I also came in through the X-Men, but it was kind of the opposite way of you. Whereas me, it was X-Men 92 was the gateway, and then after that, I transitioned into the comics.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so I came in the backwards way. I'm generally with you too. That I tend to I like a lot of DC. I'm not gonna say I don't. I love a lot of DC stuff.
The animated properties are by far that best part of DC, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you were mentioning like those are like kind of the big two. It was Batman the Animated Series and X-Men 92.
Yep.
And
Yep.
what you said was actually, whereas Batman was much more groundbreaking in terms of like its, kind of like maturity and like storytelling and all that.
Absolutely.
It didn't really have that. You're right that it didn't really have that serialization. Those episodes, especially in that first season, they're very self-contained. Whereas I mean, every now and then you have something that happened and gets referenced later on, like Ra's al Ghul or something along those lines. But for the most part, it was pretty consistently, done in one episode. Whereas X-Men, yeah, I think you're right. I think that was like the first that really leaned into that serialization concept, especially after that first season.
Yeah. I can't think of any cartoon before that. Like there was a Beetlejuice cartoon was actually pretty cute, and then there was the Ghostbusters cartoon. But I think they were all pretty much self-contained episodes. Like maybe they'd have a villain come in and say, "Hey, remember when I did X, Y, and Z?" But it was never like part 1, part 2, part 3, or in the Phoenix Saga, through part 5. It was never any of that. And something about that felt like I was still watching a cartoon. Obviously I was in high school, but something about that felt really adult and felt I was being kind of respected as a comic viewer. Like this was a real piece of media, not just a silly comic book that was immature or anything like that. It felt like it was a real part of pop culture, it felt like it was a part of my pop culture at that point.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I agree completely with that. So what kind of stuff is grabbing your interest these days? Game, like I know you mentioned Marvel Rivals before. Is that basically what's kind of grabbing your interest, or anything else?
Yeah, that's as far as the superhero. I mean, I'm super excited for Captain America. Obviously, I'm not sure when this is going live, but I think that comes out Friday, so in a few days.
Yeah. We're recording this on February 12th, and it's coming out in February 14th. And so by the time you guys listen to this, it's probably going to be, I don't know,
all out.
Yeah, it's going to be a while before you guys hear this.
Nice. Well, I hope it was fantastic. I'm really excited to hear what I think about it.
Yes.
So the MCU has me really excited right now because that new Thunderbolts trailer that came out a couple days ago looked really great. I'm really excited for that. I'm pretty much, that's what's got me, the Marvel Rivals game and then the MCU. Trying to think what else. I mean, we obviously have a video game podcast, so I'm way into video games, and there's a couple great games coming out this month. One is called Avowed, in like a week, which is a role playing game, and then Monster Hunter Wilds is a huge game that comes at the end of the month that I'm really excited for too. So that's really got my attention. But
yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, but I was going to say those two trailers for the Captain America and the Thunderbolts are really, I'm really excited for those. I think those might be two really good movies. And I think it's good that Marvel took a little bit of time off last year. I mean, of course, they had, Wolverine and Deadpool, but I think they needed a little bit of time to cook these movies a little bit more. So I'm excited to see what they come up with.
I think so too. Yeah, I think you're right. Speaking of MCU stuff, did you see the Fantastic Four trailer then?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I that one's probably got me the most intrigued out of all of them.
Oh, really?
Because,
interesting.
Yeah, and I'm not an FF guy. I'm not a big Fantastic Four guy, but I've never really been much of a fan of the comics or anything. And even when there's all this talk on online, everybody was saying, "Oh, the MCU should make that their Fantastic Four a period piece and everything." I'm just like, I don't think you need that. I wasn't really sold on that idea. I wasn't sold on it at all in First Class. So I that idea just, and I felt like, well, I don't know how you're going to even work that in with the continuity, because it's not like Captain Marvel or something like that where they can be done in secret. So, but then they said it's going to be in a different universe. And then when I saw the trailer, I'm just like, okay, I'm on board with this now. Like, I'm really digging what they got here.
They nailed Thing. Like, they just nailed his look, I think. And I really, once I saw that, I was like, okay, they're cooking up something here that hopefully will cleanse the palate from the last one. And to be honest with you, I hadn't even seen the one that got so much hate. the reboot of Fantastic Four, I didn't even see yet. It's on my list. I should see it at some point. But
I would not rush to scratch that off your list.
I know. I can't even imagine. Like, I don't even think I've seen any fights or anything in any of the like, I don't even remember what the trailers were. So I don't know.
I did rewatch, bland and very dark, very dark to like. Just visually, it's very difficult to figure out what's happening.
Yeah. I did watch the original, not the original, because I think the original was like an 80 something, but that was
the 91, the Roger Corman,
the 91, yeah. I didn't watch that one, but the one with Chris Evans and those guys. I rewatched that just like last week for some reason. It just popped up, and it holds up way better than I thought it would. Especially the special effects hold up way better than I remember them being.
Yeah, we did a pair of episodes on those two movies about a year or two ago, I think, and it was there's a lot of like, I remember everybody hating them at the time and me just kind of being like, I don't know, I kind of think they're fun, and you look at them now, they're definite flaws. I think the Doom stuff especially is just like the worst about it, but
but mostly McMahon, was that his name?
He's such a good actor, but he was just so miscast for that part, and it was just so underwritten, and then just but other than that, like I thought, like, and just they're trying to overly ground it too. Like I remember commenting on one thing when they're talking about the FF stopping a a bank robbery or something like that. I'm like, no, the FF they're supposed to be explorers. They're supposed to be like, it should be something like, a portal. They opened up a portal in the middle of Manhattan or something like that.
They're not Daredevil. Yeah,
exactly.
They're not your friend. Yeah. You're not your neighborhood protector. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I felt they kind of missed the mark on that. But I think especially in the second one, they really kind of nailed the interplay between the four. And I thought that's really kind of like the key for any Fantastic Four movies. You got to nail that family aspect. And I thought especially in the second one, they really got that one down.
Nice. Yeah, it's been a long time since I actually don't think I've seen the second one since maybe it released. Maybe I've seen it once since then, but I want to go back and take a look at it. And another thing I noticed is you could see everything in that fantastic. It was well lit. Everything was visible. There was no like dark nighttime talks. There was, because the special effects, they were able to do it without having everything pitch black in order to hide any of the mistakes that they made. So it looked really bright and visible, which is something that I really respect nowadays.
Yes, yeah, really. And it's for me, like I've actually kind of dipping my toe back into video games every now and then, just kind of coincidentally for you being on here. In fact, yesterday we had a day off, and usually on day offs when my kids are home, I can't get anything done. If I try and sit and do work on my computer, they're just climbing all over me. So that's usually, but they, for some reason, as long as they got their Kindles, they're able to let me play video games. So I dove back into No Man's Sky, and I was just playing it like all day yesterday.
Yeah, they had a new update just recently that came out, I think last week, even a brand new update. And talk about a success story with that game. When I first bought it, I wanted a refund because I bought it day one. I was in on the hype. I'm blanking on the guy's name who spearheaded it. He was on like the Colbert Show, like late night. He was really promoting that game, and I was in it. And when I got a hold of it that first day, very disappointed, like most other people that got a hold of it. But I can't think of any other video game that has been taken care of like that game. Like those developers have really kept it updated and brought new features in for years now, all for free. None of it costs any money, and it's a great game. It's a lot of fun. So if you like survival games, you should not miss No Man's Sky.
Yeah, and even if you don't like survival, like I play it on relaxed mode, and I really enjoy it. Or there's also just creative mode if you just want to go nuts and build stuff. So yeah, it's got something for everybody who likes the different flavors of stuff. And I didn't pick it up. I missed that whole controversy when everyone was getting pissed off about it. So I didn't pick it up until maybe 2 years after it came out.
Right in the sweet spot.
And at that point, it was cheap, and I picked it up really cheap, and I'm just like, I don't understand why everybody hated this. I'm actually really enjoying this. And apparently it's because they'd fixed all this stuff. But that's one of the nice things about being a patient gamer is you get the games for cheaper, and then you don't have to worry about all the bugs and stuff on day one.
Absolutely. And it's a really big problem in the gaming sphere right now, is to have like lots of these developers and publishers, they put these things out, and then we as the players kind of have to be the beta test for it. And then they fix it a year later. They get those kinks fixed out. And it kind of sucks sometimes. So it's really notable when a game comes out now and it doesn't have any bugs and it works really well and is fun, is something that we try to celebrate as much as we can. Like, look, they did the work, they put it out, a finished product, and everyone's happy.
Yeah. Anyway, today we are talking about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, the 2022 sequel to the first Black Panther movie. And this one had a really difficult job to do because Chadwick Boseman, as we all know, passed away from colon cancer in 2020. And which basically threw everything into chaos because Ryan Coogler didn't even know that Boseman had colon cancer. So he had spent like the year before, like doing all this development and writing on it, and then basically had to scrap almost all of that and start over from scratch. And so then we ended up getting the focus, and Marvel did. This is something I want to talk about first, is the decision to not recast, because I understand the tough position Marvel was in, and I understand that, Boseman was so beloved and that they felt that if we push ahead with this movie with the planned release date and we recast the part, that people are going to flip the fuck out. I totally respect that, and I can understand why they decided not to cast. At the same time, I don't really like the precedent it sets, where it's like this idea that only this one actor can play this one character, because I mean, one of Boseman's, you can see when Boseman talked in interviews, like how proud he was to play this part and to give, black kids a character that they can look up to, just like, white, like people like us. We had, Batman or Superman or Spider-Man and all those, infinite number of characters to choose from to look up to.
Absolutely.
And so I hate this idea that that I think has really emerged only in the past 20 years or so, this idea that there can only ever be one actor who plays this part. So that's why we have to keep convincing Hugh Jackman to come back as Wolverine every even though the dude's in his 50s now. And let him rest. Yes, exactly. I mean, like, we've had, how many different Batman, how many different James Bonds, how many different Supermen. And
it's not even a new concept in the MCU, because we've had a new War Machine, and in the next movie we're having a new what's his name, Secretary
Ross. Yeah,
Secretary Ross.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was really in the camp of they should recast this character, because I think that this is a character that should be allowed to exist. This is a character that is bigger, as great of a person, as great of an actor Boseman was. The character of T'Challa, Black Panther, is supposed to be bigger than him. This is a character that should span the generations and have different actors get their opportunity to put their stamp of approval on it. So that was kind of my thought going into this. How about you? What did you think about the recasting decision?
I feel not similar. Yeah, I feel similar to you. Like, they were gonna get hell no matter what they did. If they did recast him, people were gonna say, that's he was the only one that could have done it, and how dare you? And then they went the other direction and not recasting it. One of the things about Black Panther, so I only know Black Panther through the movies. I don't know his comic, other than him marrying Storm. I don't know anything else about him in the comic books. So I don't know how the movies adjusted his getting his powers. In the comic books, do you know, does he get his powers from a flower the same sort of way that he does?
Yeah, okay. The comics, the movie is very it hews very close to the source material, especially in like the depiction of Wakanda and all that. They changed things a little bit. Like the Dora Milaje in the comics originally, they were kind of like wives in waiting, is what they were described. But they're like wives in waiting / bodyguards. So, and T'Challa never did anything with them. He never committed to them or anything like that. But that was kind of like the idea. It's like they're kind of like a concubine / bodyguards, and they took
improved that.
They improved that a lot, right? Making them this this female royal guard type of thing, which I think was much better. There are some differences in Okoye and Nakia, especially. They were both Dora Milaje in the comic, but they were both young. They were like 16, 17, 18 or something like that. So they weren't like these seasoned generals type of thing. And Nakia and T'Challa did not have a love interest. There was one situation where, and I'm going deep into comic lore here, but during the Christopher Priest run is really what you want to read if you want to read Black Panther. It's like the gold standard of the Black Panther runs.
Okay.
But in that run, there was throughout most of his comics, especially like in the 1970s, 1980s, T'Challa was involved with a black woman from America. I'm blanking on her name right now. I think it was Monica something, but I can't remember exactly. And he had, the time Christopher Priest's run came along, he had been under some sort of like hallucinogenic or something like that, and he had thought he was kissing his former lover, and he found out he was kissing Nakia, and that was basically like a commitment to choose her as his wife type of thing. And so that caused a lot of trouble. And when he tried to explain the situation, she got very angry and she felt like he was, betraying her. And so then she actually became a villain. So they really improved on what they did with Nakia and Okoye in terms of character. And Okoye was just basically a loyal bodyguard the entire time, pretty much. Nothing really anything about that. Also, one other change is Shuri didn't come in until much later. She was like a late addition to the cast. I think she was introduced in like the early 2000s is when she was introduced. And then also
was she like
Ramonda
Dawn in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where she just appeared and everyone acted like she was always there?
I think so. I haven't read that run yet completely, so I don't know exactly. But Ramonda was also his stepmother, actually, not his birth mother. And Everett K. Ross was very different. Everett K. Ross in the comics, he was much more of a bureaucrat. It was much more like a paper pusher. He wasn't a CIA agent. He was a State Department employee who was kind of like in charged with, being like the Black Panther's escort while he was in New York. And he was kind of like the point of view character for the readers. What they did with him especially in Civil War, I felt he was much more like Henry Peter Gyrick from the comic. He seemed much more in that mode, like much more of like a hard nosed type of guy. And then they softened him a lot when they put him in the Black Panther movie. So those are the biggest changes. Was just those different versions of him.
So then what's not unique, but what's then with the Black Panther character is that mantle can be passed to a new person. So they were in kind of an interesting position where, hey, they could go without recasting him, and it makes sense story-wise that the new Black Panther is chosen a different way. So they did kind of have a good out, then it sounds like, to be able to still stay comic accurate and have the no recast. What I do think is kind of ironic is, to me, one of the best people that they could have chosen to recast, if they did, would be Michael B. Jordan, who played Killmonger. I thought that he could have, I think, nailed a Black Panther role, but of course they couldn't use him that way. So I think they did the best that they could with what they were given, I think. Yeah.
And sure, there is precedent for Shuri being the Black Panther too in the comics, because she did take the part in the mid 2000s as well. Killmonger actually did too for a time. He took over the mantle of the Black Panther for a time as well. So there have been different characters in the comics who have taken on that mantle.
Great. So
and some other changes they made, like minor changes, like M'Baku in the comics is much more of like a stereotypical villain. And he's very anti-technology. He's like very much a Luddite type character in the comics. So Winston Duke, he just brought so much personality to that part.
Oh, he's great. I've been watching Modern Family for some reason, just rewatching it. And he was in a couple episodes of Modern Family, Winston Duke was, as a kid, as like a high school football player. And he's just really magnetic on screen, especially in these movies. Your eyes just always going, probably because he's just such a big dude, but he's really likable to watch. I really like watching him.
Yeah. He's so much fun in these movies too. So anyway, what were kind of your thoughts going into this movie the first time you saw it?
So first time I saw it was in the theaters, day of, and then the second time was just a few hours ago. And broad strokes, I liked it better when I saw it in the theaters than I did here at home. And my main complaint, if I were to complain about anything, is the special effects really are not the best in this one. Or at least in my opinion that they are. You can tell lots of things are green screen. Of course, most everything is green screen now, but there are some blatant uses of it in this. And I didn't like the precedent that they were doing with the suits, the new suits that Shuri built for Okoye. Turning everyone into an Iron Man-esque sort of character doesn't bode well. I don't feel good about it. But as far as story goes, I thought it was a really beautiful, touching story of loss that is really hard to get in some of the other franchises within the MCU. I think the Black Panther, these two movies really are able to capture culture in a way that no other franchise within the MCU has been able to do. And I love that part of it. I love that they're unashamed, unabashedly Black. I think that is absolutely fantastic. And I love watching that.
Yeah, back when we reviewed the first one, I said that this was back during the 2020 primaries, and I said that movie, the first Black Panther movie, was so black that Mike Bloomberg had to apologize for stopping and frisking it.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. And I appreciate those swings that it really connects, and it makes, like, obviously, like I said before, I'm a white guy, so it is kind of, we're white guys, so it's kind of funny for us to talk. There's a lot of things that I probably miss in the film, just being a white guy, that I don't, go over my head. And I think that's great. Nothing should be written for just purely white consumption. I love that it's just these fantastic Black movies. I really like that.
Agreed. And to that point, I remember, a similar thing that happened in Shang-Chi. And I remember watching the part when Ronnie Chang, he's like, oh, it's okay, I speak ABC. And at first I thought he was just making a joke about, it's just another way of saying, it's like a funny way for him to say I speak English. Yeah. No, I thought it was a funny way for him to say, like, I speak English. But then, I had Asian American guest on talking about that show, and what she explained to me, she's like, what he's saying is I speak American born he's referring to American born Chinese. That's what he meant by ABC. So so I thought that was really completely flew over my head. And yeah, Black Panther and also Crazy Rich Asians, they were really like these two movies that really kind of took a swing, and they're saying, like, we're going to reduce the white cast. In Black Panther, I called them the Tolkien white guys.
Yeah.
And that's what they do, and it worked, right? Both of those movies were massively successful, and it completely upended decades of Hollywood racism, saying that, well, we need a white character for the audience to latch onto, right? And the kind of stuff that still happens. Like, they still made Green Book after that came out. So.
Yes, absolutely. And then the other kind of broad stroke thing about this movie is that this is a girl power, woman power movie, but it's not in the same way that I felt where Marvel's kind of was too aware of itself. And, that I almost felt like every scene at the end of a fight in the Marvels, they'd end up being like, look at each other and be like, girl power. Like, it was just so shoved down your throat. And so, like, what's another word? What's a way to put it? Just so blatant, I guess. This is a girl power movie without all of that. Like, each one of these women in this movie is powerful, not just because they have superpowers, because they're brilliant, because they're commanding. I mean, Angela Bassett is just incredible as the queen. Yeah, so that's another like kind of broad strokes thing of this movie that I really enjoyed, and I didn't really notice that the first time I watched it, but watching it here at home, I'm like, oh wow, like it is all powerful women, and I love that.
Yeah, I hadn't really picked up on that too, but you're right. Like the only real central main characters we have in this are obviously we have Namor but he's the antagonist,
of course,
right? But as far as like actual main male characters, we have M'Baku and Ross, and that's it. And they're very minor in the larger scope of things. Like even M'Baku, who is probably like the biggest presence of the male characters, he takes a back seat to like Okoye and Nakia and Ramonda throughout most of the movie. And he comes in at certain moments, and the moments he does come in are very impactful. Part of that is just because, you know, Winston Duke is just has got amazing screen presence, but for the most part, his presence is not as large, does not loom as large in this movie as the female characters do.
Absolutely. And even Ross, who you're introduced to as kind of like the, you know, the American power, has Julie Louis-Dreyfus now as like he's not even the boss. Julie Louis-Dreyfus is the boss. So even he's not the like stereotypical guy in charge, which I also liked, even though I do feel like they shoehorned her in there in order to get, you know, to get Thunderbolts in, you know, all the stuff the MCU does to get people in there to promote their next movie. I do feel like she was shoehorned in there a little bit, but I love
a little,
her.
But I will never say no to more Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I love her. So.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I mean, it felt like I was watching Selena Meyer in an MCU. Like
exactly.
That's what I felt like. And I loved that.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come right back. Ever have a situation where you want to watch something on Netflix, but it's only available in a different country? Or are there websites you want to access, but they're blocked in your location? What you need is a VPN, or a virtual private network. A VPN is effectively your own superhero mask to protect your device's secret identity from the internet. Your IP address and all your data are encrypted, allowing you to browse the internet safely and securely. In these uncertain times, protecting what you do on the internet is more important than ever. But free VPNs available out there are not as secure as they claim, so you need a trusted service like ExpressVPN. I've been a loyal user of ExpressVPN for years. They offer the easiest experience, the fastest speeds, and the most responsive customer service I've ever dealt with. But the best part of ExpressVPN is that you can choose the country you're accessing the internet from, which lets you get around geo-blocking. So if you want to watch something that's only available on Netflix UK, you set your location in the UK and then you watch as much as you like. If you'd like to try out ExpressVPN, you can get 60 days of free usage by signing up using my referral link in the podcast description. Just click the link in the description to get started. Since you're listening to this show, I already know you love watching superhero movies and TV shows, and you just might enjoy superhero comics. But how about superhero novels? I'm giving away 2 free superhero novels and 1 free superhero short story. Visit percivalconstantine.com/SCP to get access to Vanguard, Heroes Forged, the first novel in my own Avengers and X-Men inspired superhero novel series, and Ronin Born, my cyberpunk superhero novel set in a futuristic Japan. I'm also throwing in Fire and Lightning, a free prequel story to my new Power Rangers inspired superhero series, Omega Knights. So visit percivalconstantine.com/SCP, those are just the letters SCP, to get started, or click on the link in the show notes. And now, on with the show. And we are back. We're still talking about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. So I want to talk about Namor. I'm always going to go to it's, even in the movie they don't really
it's hard to
know how to pronounce his name, because he calls himself Namor, and which I thought was kind of a clever way they had come about the meaning of that name in the movie, because in the comics it's like, I think it's like Atlantean for avenging sun is what it means, but in reality, like, it was just the creator, he just spelled the word Roman backwards is how he got the name.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so they had this really unique take on Namor in this film, where instead of Atlantis, they went with Talokan is the name of it, and it's and Namor is Kul Khan, the feathered serpent god from Aztec mythology. And they really kind of leaned into this idea of linking the Atlanteans with Mesoamerican mythology and all that. What did you think of that decision?
I am not I didn't know much about Namor before one he was in a video game, and I think that taught me a little bit about him, but I didn't really know anything about him until this movie, other than the fact I think he's the first. Is he the first mutant? I mean, I think Apocalypse is the very first mutant, right? And
yes. So within the Marvel history, Apocalypse is likely the first mutant, but within Marvel publication history, Namor is the first.
Gotcha. He's the first one. Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. So yes, I think no one has any connection to Atlantis. No one has any cultural connection to Atlantis. And that's, like I said before, one of the big things I love about this movie is they're unabashedly cultural. And to have put a second culture in there, I thought was a brilliant idea. I really liked what they did about it. And I think it worked out really well. My big problem that I have with it and any of the Aquaman movies, to be frank, is that people look really silly floating in the water. And it's really hard to make conversations in water look cool. And I think this movie had just as many problems with that as all the other Aquaman movies. But other than that, I did love the change from Atlantean to the Spanish South American culture. I really liked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting idea because it works because, like you said, it has this cultural connection to it that it provides. It also gives you a chance to cast a different kind of actor in this role. So instead we get Tenoch Mejia as Mejia. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. But he was great as the part. I thought he had really good screen presence. He had this kind of like commanding air about him, but he also had this humanistic side to him, which it's very tough to do with Namor. Because if anyone who's read the comics knows that Namor kind of varies between being just kind of like kind of an asshole or just being like a straight up supervillain. So he's a very difficult character to kind of get right. Which is probably why, Submariner comics have never really done too well, because he's a very difficult character to write.
I would imagine. Yeah.
And I think that, and also making this Talokan instead of Atlantis, it does help you differentiate from Aquaman a lot, because I remember seeing that with,
that's a great point.
With John Carter, right? When John Carter was the trailers for John Carter was out, everyone was like, oh, they ripped this off from Star Wars. Like, no, they didn't. Star Wars ripped it off from John Carter. John Carter
Absolutely.
came first. But also, and here's my conspiracy theory about this, because for a long time, and I don't know what the official story is, because I don't think the official story has ever been completely told, but Universal has had the rights to Namor for the movie rights. And like, it's been theorized that the reason why Marvel hasn't done any of their own Hulk movies, because the original, the Incredible Hulk film was released through Universal, is because Universal has the rights to Hulk films. So that's why Marvel has the rights to the characters. So they can use the character and never anything. But if they do a movie centered around the Hulk, it has to come out through Universal, is kind of what I've heard. And again, I'm not sure how true this all is. Apparently something similar exists with Namor, but it might be the rights. Now, here's where my conspiracy theory comes from, because Namor is technically in the public domain. His first appearance did not have a proper copyright notice on it when the character was first published, which means that that original appearance, and only that original appearance, is in the public domain. So technically, everything that appears in that original comic is public domain. And interestingly enough, the comic never mentions that Namor is from Atlantis. So it wasn't until later issues that they specified he was from Atlantis.
Yeah, so they could get around it in the movie by taking that out. That makes sense.
This is my conspiracy theory. Yes, that actually that Marvel is using the public domain version of Namor to get around the universal rights situation. Now, I have no idea if that's true, but that's my conspiracy theory.
I would believe that way more than I would believe the Earth is flat. So so you've got me with that one for sure. No, that sounds perfectly reasonable and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, famously we all know that Marvel didn't have the rights to the Fox characters until they bought them. So it makes sense that this would be the case for this too. And it also would explain why we never had a Hulk movie in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do say those 2 Hulk movies are canon, right? To the MCU.
Well, the second one, yeah. The first one they don't, but the second one, yeah.
Okay.
But again, that was released through Universal.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I fully support that.
Now, looking over one of the things, and I had kind of a similar reaction to you when I was rewatching this. I've seen this movie like maybe 3 times since it came out.
Okay.
This was my 3rd time I watched it. I watched it in the theater, and when I watched it in the theater, I loved it. And I've actually been on 2 other podcasts talking about this movie before
really?
Talking about my own show. Yeah. So it's interesting to see, like, and I was, full on, like the first podcast I was on with, it was like right after I saw it, and I was full on, gushing about this movie. The second podcast I was on, that was after it had come out on Disney Plus, and a little bit of time had passed, and I'd cooled a little bit, but still, and it was a group podcast, and I was like the only one really kind of like defending this movie, so I was in kind of an awkward position there.
Yeah.
But then this time I'm rewatching it now for last night, and it's not a bad movie or anything, but it definitely does not land as well as it did that first time. And I think one of the big problems is, I mean, you mentioned Val as, Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character kind of being shoehorned in. I mean, I wasn't as upset with her because, like I said, I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus, so that was fine. But also because her part is very minor, so it didn't really annoy me so much. But I think Riri Williams, Ironheart, played by Dominique Thorne. And this is nothing against Dominique Thorne. I actually think she does a really good job in the part. I think she's a great choice for this character. I think she's very fun to watch on screen, but it's just like, I don't feel like this movie really needed her character in there.
It did feel like that Spider-Man problem where they're trying to put one too many big name characters in there, and they were doing it in order to getting in our heads for her TV show. So that is really where I feel like they introduced her. Yes, I completely agree that it was just one too many. I really wanted to focus a lot on that Shuri Namor conflict than have this new Iron Man character in there. But I feel the same way. I loved her. I thought she was great. I like the fact that her suit was actually a suit and not nanotechnology. That was really nice to see. But yes, it was a little one too many.
It was also kind of telling at the end when Shuri says to her, he's like, your design is great, but you can't take it with you. And it's like, yeah, that because she's got to make it again in the Disney Plus show. We know why. I mean, that really
I that this time too.
That completely cemented why that they're just kind of like they're trying to have it both ways with her. So yeah, she was kind of disappointing in it. But also what's interesting is she actually kind of had a similar role to so there's a character in the Black Panther run who becomes part of the Dora Milaje, but she grew up in Chicago and she is of Wakandan descent. And I'm not very familiar with Ironheart in the comics, so I'm not sure how much of this is my other conspiracy theory. Was I think that they gave a lot of the personality of this other character from the Black Panther run, whose name was Queen Divine Justice. I feel like they gave a lot of her personality traits to Riri in this, because it feels like a lot of it feels very similar, like the kind of like, almost somewhat kind of, being kind of like a foil to Shuri and all of that, and being, more representative of the African American experience as opposed to the African experience. So that, and I think that's cool, but I just feel like this movie had so much stuff going on that this wasn't really the movie to have that perspective in there.
Yeah, Yeah, I think I feel the same way. I don't, because Ironheart's a pretty new character in the comic books, right? She's not someone that's been around for a long period of time.
No, only from like the past 10 years or so or something, maybe less.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it felt very corporate to have her in there. Not setting aside the fact that I think she's a great actress and they did well with her character. There was something that didn't feel like it was a good fit. I totally agree. But then on the other side of it, now that I'm thinking about it, I love the fact that there's two young Black female geniuses in a movie. It's not like they didn't look at it and they're like, well, we can't have her in there because we already hit our quota of Black female geniuses. And they wouldn't do that with any other character. So I give them a little bit of credit for that they didn't go that direction.
Yeah, that's true. And you mentioned, Angela Bassett before, Ramonda.
Yeah.
I thought she really stepped it up in this movie compared, like, she was great in the first movie, but she took it to another level in this film.
There's that famous speech that she gives to Okoye in the throne room, quote unquote throne room, is just really, really incredible. And that's what got her that Oscar nomination is I think that scene. It's just
that too. And
gorgeous.
The speech that she gives at the UN.
Yes.
Like that's just it. That speech like seared into my mind when she just says like, we know what you say. We know what you whisper about in the halls of power. Just like the king is dead. They have lost their protector. And it's just like, and cut in with the Dora Milaje just going to town on these freaking mercenaries and then just marching them right in. It's like, I'm just like, I was totally here for, Queen Ramonda. She's just, full on badass in this part.
It's something that's so great about the MCU that they can take these actors with such gravitas to them and really use them correctly. Like they really, those acting chops really shine through in these MCU movies. Not that they don't in the DCU movie. I mean, of course, Heath Ledger, absolutely incredible, but there's just something about what they do in the MCU, which is why I'm really excited to see how Harrison Ford does his job. I'm really curious to see, because I could see how he might, being the age that he is and the kind of the guy that he is, that I hope he doesn't phone it in and that he's just like, relying on the special effects to get him through things. So I'm really looking forward to seeing his acting chops in a superhero film. I mean, actually, Indiana Jones is pretty much a superhero. So in the MCU superhero films.
No, yeah, I felt the same thing about. I mean, my whole thing was I love Harrison Ford, but Sam Neill played this part before. You can just get him back again.
Yeah, exactly.
Or not Sam Neill.
Who played Rock? Because what's his name played him in the Hulk movies.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember
who else has played him.
It was Jesus Christ, what was his name? Sam Elliott. That's who I was thinking of. Sam Elliott.
It was Sam Elliott. Oh,
yeah, he played him in. He played him. No, I said Sam Neill.
Oh, Sam Neill. Oh,
Sam Neill's from Jurassic Park. Yeah. No, Sam Elliott from the 2003 Hulk film. Like that's like the perfect casting choice for General Ross. I mean, I loved.
That's a good call.
Yeah, I mean, I love the other guy, but still, like this guy. I mean, Sam. Get Sam Elliott back. He's still around. He could still do that part.
I didn't even think about that.
Anyway, so apologies, listeners, for my brain fart there. But anyway, what did you think overall about the decision? Like I said, it was almost a given that Shuri would become the Black Panther in this. Yeah. They even kind of like hinted at it in the first movie where they have she's got like the Panther style gauntlets that she uses when they're asking if anyone wants to challenge T'Challa for the role of Black Panther. Like Shuri kind of raises her hand, but she says something different. So they were kind of like they have these little kind of like in jokes for it, but they decided to go full on and cast and make her the Black Panther. And I don't know, like part of me was thinking Yeah, I know they did it in the comics, but you don't always have to be wed to what they do in the comics. And they've done that. They've swerved a few times, like with Iron Man. Tony Stark becomes an alcoholic in the comics. Him and Pepper never end up in a relationship together. But they made a change. They decided, well, he's kind of the tentpole character of this franchise, so we don't want him to have to go through the alcoholism thing. They decided that, well, Downey and Gwyneth Paltrow have amazing chemistry on screen, so it makes sense for those two characters to get together. And so they've made these different swerves in the movies from the comics. And I felt like here was a case where you could have made a case for another character. Like, for example, Okoye would have been a great choice for a new Black Panther, or even M'Baku as well. I thought he too would have been an amazing choice. What did you think about the ultimate decision to choose Shuri?
So probably, I think maybe a year ago or so, or maybe it was soon after the movie came out, I was brainstorming how it could have gone differently. And I came up with that same theory that Okoye would have been, I think if I had control over the franchise, which is probably a great thing that I don't, but if I did, I think that's the direction I would have went as well, because everything's talking about the Black Panther being a protector, and who else is a protector in this universe than Okoye? Like being the general, and even she gives that speech after she is fired, how she's given her life to the job of protecting. I think that's the direction I probably would have gone as well. And I actually would have liked to have seen, I think it would have been a really cool idea to make plan for the future and make I guess they could do it now, but have Okoye be the Black Panther and then make her and still have her fall in love with Storm later on in the MCU. I would have really liked that kind of angle to it too, because then they could still keep with the comic books, but have a twist to it as well. But yes, watching, I don't necessarily think that Letitia, if I'm pronouncing it right, it's Letitia Wright. Letitia, I don't think she's my favorite actress, chops wise. She's great, but I think that there was a gravitas to that role that I think was felt a little missed. And one thing I didn't notice when I first watched the movie, but watched it now, is the fight scene at the end between her and Namor. The stature difference between the two characters really made me feel like I was watching a dude beat up a little girl. Like it really felt like I was like, oh my gosh, he's throwing this. She had her helmet on, or her nano helmet on, and so you couldn't really. But that stature, it really felt uncomfortable on the second viewing, watching that happen. It was pretty intense. So I think maybe someone of a more muscular stature like Okoye wouldn't have made me feel so like, ooh, that's a little, he just really like slammed her into the ground, stabs her right through the stomach. It's pretty violent. But that was my thought on her. And then she got into some hot water, I think, when it was either between the two movies or right when the movie was coming out, because I think it was during
COVID. She had some some anti-vax views or something that was going around. Yeah.
And people can have their views. That didn't really turn me away from her at all, but I could understand how Marvel was like, be quiet, we don't need that. Mm-hmm. But I'm with you. I think Okoye would have been a great choice for it, but it still worked out.
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues I had too, like I didn't mind the size difference. It did stand out to me, like especially when she's standing next to M'Baku, because like she's so much smaller than Winston Duke. But I'm a huge Buffy fan, and Sarah Michelle Gellar is tiny, so I was able to reconcile.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I think it almost.
I'm also a huge Buffy fan.
and since her powers come from the heart-shaped herb, like it's not from like her actual physical strength, so I was able to it provides an interesting contrast when you see her up against like Namor. But on the I do agree, like on the presence type of thing, because especially when you compare her to like Danai Gurira, who plays Okoye, or Winston Duke as M'Baku, like, and especially
or
Angela
even
Bassett, right?
Lupito Nyong'o too. The same
Nyong'o,
thing.
yeah.
That presence, yeah.
Yeah, they all have. And that's why, when I was running down the list of names, like she just kind of like she gets overshadowed a lot in what is supposed to be her own movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, like the interaction she has with Meha, who plays Namor, are really good. But again, I feel like he is very much he feels very much like he is in command of that scene. Whereas with Boseman or with Bassett, you feel like they are the ones who are in charge. And even when you have like two big personalities, like when you had Duke and Boseman on screen in the first movie together, they're both very big personalities, but Boseman manages to take that presence away from Duke. I mean, Wright is a great actress in a lot of ways, but she can't take that same presence back. She can't command the stage in the way that, these other actors can.
Yeah, she's not metaphorically big. She's small in stature, and she's kind of small in her acting is more like a I don't know how to explain it. I want to say smaller, but that's not smaller in a bad way. Her acting is just a little bit more nuanced than the big personalities that it could have been.
I mean, and as much as I criticize the use of Riri in this film, honestly, I feel like some of the best scenes that Wright has are when she's interacting with Dominique Thorne. I think like they have a good give and take, and it doesn't feel like anyone is really dominating those scenes. Like in those scenes, Wright is really able to shine a lot more, I felt.
Absolutely, especially when they first meet each other in the dorm room in that scene, and then the final scene when they're saying goodbye and they do their handshake, their like knowing handshake to each other, and she fixes the car up. Those two scenes are really good. I like them both a lot.
And also we got, speaking of bringing back characters from the first movie, we got Michael B. Jordan coming back. Okay, that was something rumored that he could possibly be appearing. And my theory was always that he would appear in the ancestral plane because all the previous Black Panthers appear there. So it made sense. He was a Black Panther for a short amount of time, but still he was one of them. So what did you think of his scene?
I'm the same way with you. I wasn't surprised by it because I'm also being in the entertainment industry. I hear casting. I mean, we all pretty much live on the internet now, so we all know casting when it comes out pretty quickly. But as soon as that came out, I was like, well, he's dead. How else is he going to appear except the ancestral plane? So I wasn't surprised, but I liked what they did because of how the movie was going. It was on its way to being a revenge movie, and who else is gonna talk to her but some who I thought was like a spirit of revenge, and it worked out really well. But he is a really, really incredible actor, and by far that, if not the best villain, one of the top 3 best villains that they have had in the MCU. So it was always a win to have him back there.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I cannot say enough good things about his performance, and just like the way and it made sense too, because obviously, practically you can't have T'Challa come back in the ancestral plane because you don't have Boseman anymore. But of course, conceptually, it made sense with and they were very smart about the way they wrote this, I felt, because they did do it in a way that showed that it is, it's a different, because she's pursuing this more kind of like revenge type path than what T'Challa was going on. So it makes sense that it would be Killmonger is the one who appears to her.
Absolutely. Even though, it would have been interesting. Oh, if Boseman hadn't passed away, because he had his own revenge arc in Civil War. That was all Civil War was about, was his, not all, but that was a big part of Civil War, was his revenge arc. And he did the exact same thing that Letitia ended up doing too. So that it was almost like she was doing an homage to his arc in Civil War, that, you know, I'm on a revenge path, but I'm going to show mercy at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So that was nice. That was a parallel I didn't think about until just now.
And then we also get the ending too. Well, first, there are two parts I want to talk about with the ending, or actually three parts now that I think about it. But first, this idea of forming this alliance with Talokan, and the speech that Namor gives to Namora at the end, where he's telling her, it's like, you know, she has no allies, you know, so, you know, we're the only ones that she can count on now. So that raises our power. Like, I thought that was an incredibly smart and very realistic way to depict like these different geopolitical conflicts that rise up.
Yeah, my only fear is that because Marvel is in so many different pies, that they're trying to do so many things, that it's never going to get like that is never going to get paid off. I also loved it. I thought that was a great way to do it, but the chances of it getting paid off, I feel like, are pretty slim. But it is something I want to see.
Also, I thought it was interesting that because this came out after Ms. Marvel, and in Ms. Marvel at the end, we get the confirmation that Kamala is a mutant, not an Inhuman like she originally was in the comics. And but they don't come out and directly say it, right? She just says it's a mutation. They have the cords.
It's her buddy who says it to him, right?
And
it says it to her.
Yeah. And they got the little cords from the X-Men 92 theme. But they don't come right out and call her a mutant. And then Namor, which this came out after Ms. Marvel, he says, I'm a mutant. So I thought it was in an interesting way. Yeah, he is Marvel's first named mutant in the comics, and he is also the MCU's first named mutant in the movies now, too.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't think about that either. Well, I didn't know about that was Namor's past in the comic books. So that totally works. Did he have the wings on his feet, and could he fly in the comics? He could.
Oh, yeah. Yep. In fact, that was one thing that Coogler insisted on. He's like, I want to make sure that we have the wings on the feet and the pointed ears and all that.
Oh, that's interesting, because it did feel, at points it looked a little silly to me watching it, not being a big fan or not knowing a lot of Namor and his past. Him hovering in the air with the little wings flapping around on his feet. It looked kind of silly to me. By the end, it's
very much a Golden Age thing. Yeah, it's very much something out of the Golden Age of comics. But I like it. I like the kind of I like that when they lean into these kind of like ridiculous stuff, like we're getting in the new Superman movie, right? They're just leaning right into it, and they're having crypto in it. So
yeah. And that makes me, when I saw that pop up, I have one of my favorite t-shirts is Superman with crypto, and I used to wear it out all the time, and people were like, oh, what, Superman doesn't have a dog? And I'd be like, nope, Superman absolutely has a dog. That is crypto. So I'm very excited to see crypto on the main screen.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was there were two interesting parts at the end. Like the first one, I didn't really notice much. And that's when M'Baku steps out of the jet at the end, and he says that, the Black Panther can't come today, but I'm here to challenge for the throne. So I never really thought much about it until this last time. But now I'm thinking like, wait a minute. So are they going to be doing something where like maybe she actually doesn't want the throne of Wakanda, and but she will still continue being Black Panther? So
well, it's certainly never something that I got in this movie or any previous movie, that she wanted any sort of power. I mean, she's got in her intelligence in the movies and in the comic books is equal to that of Tony, right? Of Iron Man. Oh,
I think it's even advanced, because in Infinity War, they're talking about why they did this with Vision, and then she just says she's like, why didn't you do it this way? And then even Vision looks at Banner and he's like, yeah, why didn't you do it that way? And Banner's like, we didn't think of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I could see it would make total sense to me that that her character wouldn't want to be a ruler, that would want to have her focus be on the science and bettering the Wakandans through her intellect and not so much through her bloodline. So that makes sense to me. Wait, also, so is that how you caught the end of the movie, that he was that Winston Duke was going to be the king,
or that he's challenging for the throne, or like that's what I was curious about, because it's nothing he's ever said. He doesn't say I'm challenging for the role of Black Panther. He says I'm challenging for the throne. So it's very specific.
And while he's doing that, she is that when she's heading to see Lupito?
Yes. Yeah. That's when she's on her trip to Haiti. Yeah.
To Haiti. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And I think I like that.
It'll be interesting to see if, because apparently Coogler is working on a third movie now. So, and he's talked about Denzel Washington having a part in it too. So it'll be really interesting to see.
That was just recent. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's also the Eyes of Wakanda TV show that's supposed to be coming out soon as well. So we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens, or get some hint at least in Eyes of Wakanda, I guess.
Yeah.
And then finally at the end, when we meet T'Challa and Nakia's son, Toussaint, or as he says, his name is actually T'Challa.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I thought that was a clever way of recasting of doing both, not stepping on Boseman's legacy and not, drawing the ire of Boseman's fans by recasting the part, but instead you have his son who has the same name. That's how they're going to recast him eventually.
Do we think that when the actual recasting happens, because he's so young, that he'll be a part of their Young Avengers plans, or do you think he'd go into his own right back into the Black Panther franchise?
My theory is that it'll be some like timey-wimey shenanigans as part of Secret Wars, and then that's how they'll have like a grown-up T'Challa come in, and that's how they'll be able to recast him, is kind of what I think is probably most likely. I'm not sure how likely it is, but that was what my thought was going when I left.
Yeah,
the first
that makes. It's comic books and it's movies. They can do it. They can pretty much do anything that they want with any explanation. Like they could pull another Black Panther from another universe, and they could do it in a couple minutes, and people would just be like, "Okay, that's the new one." I felt a little. I liked it at the end. It was a total surprise, which I really appreciated the first time. I did not expect that at all. But on the other hand, I felt like they were trying to have it both ways, but not in a positive way. Like I wanted them to commit to, if they were going to make Shuri be Black Panther, I wanted them to commit to that. And I felt this was them hedging their bets at the end. Like, well, if you didn't like what we ended up doing, here's this little tidbit to show you that, we can go this way instead. And I like it better when they commit to something, like they committed to the wings on the feet. I respect it a little bit more. So we'll just, because I think they did it to give themselves an out and not in a good way. So we'll see what they end up working with it.
No, that's a good point. I think you're right. I think I agree with you on that. I think it did feel a little bit as like, we're just trying to, it felt like insurance, basically, in case.
Absolutely. That's perfect.
Like in case, Wright doesn't go over well, or in case, her anti-vax stuff becomes an issue again, then we can just, kind of quietly push her into the background, and then we get an aged up T'Challa, and then we get to recast T'Challa, basically.
Exactly. Insurance is the perfect word for it. There was one thing I wrote down that I really loved. Two things. One is I loved, even though the siren singing to lure the humans off the boats didn't really make any sense with what they set up. Like, how did they have that power? What did they use? I guess vibranium they used as some sort of speaker to get people. So it didn't really make sense in that, but I loved having that in there as like, oh, here's the basis for like sirens in mythology, that it's these people. And I loved that part of it. And then this would have come 2 or 3 movies after Endgame. I'm not quite sure on the timeline how many after.
Might have been more. I'm not sure, but
might have been more
at some point after Endgame. Yeah.
I didn't notice it the first time I watched it, but it did this. The difference in the funeral between Tony Stark's funeral at the end of Endgame and T'Challa's funeral here, the celebration of life in T'Challa's funeral versus the somberness of Tony Stark's. I liked that juxtaposition, and maybe I only noticed it now because I just watched Endgame a couple days ago again too. So maybe I only noticed it in that because they also look up and you see the mural of T'Challa on one of the buildings. And in one of the Spider-Man movies, you see the mural of Iron Man on one of the buildings. And I think that was the parallel there. But I really like that juxtaposition of the two.
Yeah, I picked up on that that much more celebratory funeral service in the African style versus the much more somber one in the American style. That was a nice touch. It was another way of drawing these different cultural differentiations that you'd mentioned earlier. Anyway, we're just about out of time. So would you like to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find Good Playing With You on all the socials and on YouTube and goodplayingwithyou.com. And if you want to just follow me, you're more than welcome to. I'm Matthew J. Maulding on Twitter or X now. I don't really post that much, but most of the stuff is through Good Playing With You. But yeah, if you like video games, we'd love to have you come check us out. We do a show every week on Friday. And then we post some shorts throughout the week.
Okay. And by the time you guys listen to this, I will have already been on their show. We're scheduled to record next week on that. So, but you guys won't be listening to this until probably the end of March. So by that point, you can go back and check out my appearance on the show.
But Matthew, can't wait to have you.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for coming on. This is a fun discussion.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And as for us, superherocinephiles.com is the website, and Super Cinema Pod on social networks, which is basically mostly Blue Sky is where I'm actually posting. And then we post release announcements on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. But most of the communication happens on Blue Sky, and we are Super Cinema Pod on most of those. That does it for now. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. Superhero Cinephiles is produced by me, Percival Constantine. The show is created by myself and the late, great Derek Ferguson, our host emeritus. Visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com to listen to past episodes or find out how you can be a guest yourself. Support the show by visiting our advertiser links or click the Buy Me a Coffee link on the website to make a one-time donation. We are Super Cinema Pod on both Instagram and Blue Sky, so please be sure to follow us. We'd also appreciate if you could rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and share us with your friends.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.